Hey guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how to cope with grief and traumatic grief, and I think that this should be the end of the topic. I've been talking a lot about grief just because of my own personal experience, because of a couple of you who have requested these videos over the course of the last 3 weeks. So I've been talking a lot about that, but I think it's okay for us to end the topic with ways to cope with it. And I'm going to talk about some things that are designed to change your perception and how you look at things. And I also want to talk about cognitive behavior therapy. Okay, so that's basically what this video is about, and how we can kind of maneuver our thoughts to cope with the grief and the traumatic loss in our lives. All right, so let's just go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For those who are subscribed, and for those who are new, I encourage you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stick around with us and be a part of our community. It is growing every single day, and it's so great to see the numbers go up and to get emails and texts and responses to a lot of my videos and a lot of the things that we talk about. I also love to see how you guys communicate with each other on the channel without me. So I think that is totally awesome. So thank you so much for all your participation, and I do encourage you to become a part of our community if you are new. The benefits for you in today's videos, I'm going to highlight a couple of CBT, cognitive behavior therapy tools that can kind of help you come out of the grieving process. So let's just go ahead and get started. So there are two terms that I think is important for me to bring up, just so that you understand exactly what happens to you during the grief process. The first term is known as cognitive fusion. Okay, cognitive fusion. The second term is known as cognitive diffusion. Cognitive diffusion. And the whole idea behind cognitive fusion is that you have a thought, okay, and it tends to be a disturbing thought, and somehow you take that thought as reality. Just because you think it, you feel that it's going to be reality. Or just because you think it, you feel that it's going to be something that has something to do with a realistic part of your world. And a lot of people go through this when they are experiencing postpartum depression. A lot of people go through this when they have obsessive compulsive disorder or even social anxiety disorder. Here's an example of cognitive fusion. So let's say you have OCD, you have obsessive compulsive disorder, you have obsessions, which are thoughts that you tend to think about multiple times throughout the day. You ruminate, okay? Obsessions, they are thoughts that you can't get out of your mind. And you have compulsions, which are behaviors that you use to reduce those obsessions, right? So compulsions could really be thought of as negative coping skills. It's a way to cope with the obsession, but it's not a healthy way to cope with the obsession, okay? So you have an obsession or a thought that you can't get out of your mind, and then you have that compulsion, which is the behavior that you utilize to reduce those obsessions, okay? And you're having obsessions about wanting to commit suicide. Every time you walk past a bridge, or every time you walk past the kitchen where there are knives out, you have a thought that you want to commit suicide. The thought is so overwhelming and overpowering that you almost begin to think that the thought is reality, that you're actually going to act because you're having that thought, okay? That is called cognitive fusion. You are taking a thought and you are blending it so much with your emotions that you believe that the thought is actually reality. Okay, there are also cognitive fusion can also be thought of as a series of thoughts that you have that really feel so very real to you that you can't separate it. You can't seem to understand logically that your thought doesn't mean that you're going to act on that. That your thought, doesn't mean that you're going to carry out in an action what you're thinking. The fact that you are cognitively processing that your friend's husband is attractive doesn't mean that you're going to go out and have an affair with him. It just means that you're having a thought that he's an attractive man. Doesn't mean that you're going to have an affair with him. So cognitive fusion is an inability to separate a thought and a behavior, okay? Now, cognitive diffusion, which is right over here, is the idea that you learn to separate the two, okay? So basically you realize that, okay, that's my thought, but it doesn't mean that that's my behavior. I can have the thought, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to act out on that behavior. When you are struggling with traumatic grief or traumatic loss, you know, all your thoughts, behaviors, and emotions get so combined and so meshed that it's really hard to tell certain things apart, right? You may have certain negative thoughts that makes you feel like you're going to act on it. You may have such negative emotions that you feel that you're going to act on it. So things get blended and blurred. One way to cope with healing from grief and loss is to engage in the process of cognitive diffusion. And that's the act of trying to separate reality from your thoughts and trying to separate reality from your emotions and how you're feeling about something. So being mindful that, okay, wait a minute, just because I'm having a thought doesn't mean that I'm going to act on it. Just because I'm having a thought doesn't mean that I'm really going to go out and behave this way is really a coping skill, because it's helping me to stay grounded in reality. Okay, and that goes to my next coping skill, which is a coping skill known as grounding. Grounding is the whole idea that, you know, your mind gets taken away and it goes off to a different space when you are grieving or you are overwhelmed by an emotion. Your mind tends to go off to a different place, and it may go off to a different place that's very negative, like having suicidal thoughts or thinking that you're not good enough or you're not smart enough or feeling that you're overwhelmed and you're going to fail everything in your life because you're overwhelmed, right? Thinking that you're going to be traumatized and you're going to grieve forever. So, you know, having those uncomfortable thoughts can really take your mind to a different place. Well, if you ground yourself in reality and you bring yourself back into reality, you're less likely to be overwhelmed. You can kind of think of this as a very strong daydream. Okay, or a very strong spell, and your mind is not in the present moment. It is somewhere else, processing things and thinking over things and maybe having flashbacks and maybe reliving something. Another way to cope is to utilize grounding. Grounding is focusing on your senses and your immediate environment in order to kind of kick yourself back into reality. I use this with a lot of my kids under the age of 18 who are struggling with anxiety and struggling with disturbing obsessions and thoughts. And one of the things that I tell them to do is when you feel yourself leaving reality and you're kind of going into this daydreaming phase, to try to find a color in the environment, right? So you can say to yourself, I wonder if I can find black in this environment. And the whole idea is to get yourself to look around the room for something that's black, okay? And you might say, oh, there's something right over there. There's a black pair of pants. There's a black book, a black pair of shoes, right? The whole idea is to get yourself to come from the inside of yourself and to come back into reality and focus on the present time. When you're looking for something black in your environment, or something gold or pink, or something that's round or square or triangle, right? Or you're looking for something that is, you know, purple and gray, it really does pull your mind. I'm sorry about that, guys, the noise in the background. It really does pull your mind into reality, okay? Grounding is making yourself function based on sensory stimulation, okay? And making yourself pay attention to the present moment. Grounding can also be pausing and saying, what do I hear in my environment right now? What do I hear? Oh, I hear the air conditioner. I hear cars driving by, right? It makes you pause and it makes you focus. And it sounds silly, but when you start looking at those small details in your environment, it really does have an impact on bringing you back to reality, okay? It gets your mind off of it real fast. The other coping skill is distraction. Now, let me break down this concept of distraction. I don't mean distraction in the sense that, you know, you just distract yourself with music or distract yourself with jump rope or exercising or going for a walk. I mean utilizing distraction to get your mind off of the pain that you are feeling and the trauma that you are feeling, maybe the flashbacks that you're experiencing, the memories, by utilizing reality, right? Okay, so let's say in your day, you know that you need to be getting ready for work. You know that you need to be preparing for dinner tonight. You know you need to be going grocery shopping. You know that you need to be going to the post office. Instead of pausing and being harassed by your obsessions, by your rumination, by your disturbing thoughts and flashbacks, you want to be able to get up and say, you know what? I'm not going to think about this right now. I need to go to the post office, right? Or I'm not going to think about this right now. I need to go for a walk and get some exercise. Or nope, I'm not going to think about what happened when they crashed, and I'm not going to think about the sights and the senses and the things that I heard and the things that I felt. I'm not going to think about any of that. I'm going to go ahead and prepare dinner for tonight. And throwing yourself into that activity. That's what I mean by distraction. Not distraction where you just do something for the heck of it to distract yourself. I mean distraction with reality. So distract yourself with the things that you know that you need to be doing. Okay, that is another coping skill. I think a lot of people get really confused about distraction techniques. They really do feel that distraction is putting on some music and blasting it, you know. Not necessarily. Distraction should be something that you need to be doing, but it's something more constructive. Okay. Also, there's this concept of cognitive coping thoughts. And basically the whole idea behind coping thoughts is that instead of thinking about the negative things that you're going through, you are thinking about things that are more positive and more balanced and more realistic. So instead of me thinking about being in the ICU with my grandmother while she was slowly dying, and the heart monitor going off because she's getting close to flatlining, or she's flatlining every now and then, instead of me thinking about that whole process and, you know, really being there in the room and experiencing all of these things all around me, instead of thinking about that, I'm going to have a coping thought, and I'm going to say, you know what? There's no more pain for her and she's better off this way. Or I'm going to think to myself, that was a process of life that we all have to go through. And, you know, at least now I've been through that, and the next situation may not be as painful. You know, or another coping thought may be, you know, I'm just glad that I was there to hold her hand and to love her and to be there and let her know that I love her before she died, right? So those are coping thoughts. They're not positive thoughts for the heck of being positive, okay? They are thoughts that are placed there to replace those negative thoughts, but you're doing it in a realistic way, okay? One thing I never liked about CBT is that, you know, some people can see cognitive behavior therapy as ignore reality and be positive, be balanced and ignore what you're really feeling. And that's not quite the right approach, I should say, with cognitive behavior therapy. I think CBT needs to be utilized in a realistic fashion. We need to be able to use it, but in a way that still acknowledges how we're feeling. So, you know, we don't want to just throw out some cognitive coping thoughts because they're positive. We want to utilize some realistic pieces of the situation. So let's say, for example, you're, you know, having obsessive thoughts about wanting to kill yourself, and, you know, you've tried distraction, you've tried grounding, you know, you've tried all the other coping skills. Well, what can you do next? Well, I think using cognitive coping thoughts can be helpful, but what you want to do is take that situation and say, okay, I know I don't want to kill myself. I know that I want to live, but maybe I should look at it this way, that, you know, these thoughts are telling me that something is happening to me, and that's okay. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to be depressed at times. It's okay to be stressed and overwhelmed. I'm going to get through this. Okay, that's a realistic cognitive coping thought. Another cognitive coping thought using this example may be, I may be having suicidal thoughts, but other people do as well, and that doesn't mean that I'm going to kill myself. It just means I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, and I'm going to get through this. Okay, it's realistic. It's not, you know what, everything's going to be okay. It's not that kind of thing. It's really realistic. So I want you guys to take some time and try these techniques. I'm not going to give you the rest. I think I'll save those for a later time. But go ahead and try these techniques that I talked about, and tell me if you've tried them before, if they work. And let me know down in the comment section below if these kind of videos are helpful, because if they are, I'll come back and I'll do a coping skills video for all the videos that I'm going to be doing moving forward. So just let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for being with me today, guys, in this video. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button if this video was helpful to you, and share it with someone, and hit that subscribe button if you want to be a part of our community. All right, guys, have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. Bye.